Hey folks, Joe Morris with Answers. Heaven Speaks. It's Monday following Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had a really good, at least for all you Americans, you had a good Thanksgiving. And I don't know, some people carry it off into part of the week. Um, it's such a shame. People travel so far to go see family, and they're only there for a day or two and back. And then Christmas comes along. And Christmas is less than a month away. Today's November 27th. We got December 25th. Oh my God. Yeah, time is just flying. Time is flying. If you're a young person, you think that time takes forever. When you get older, time just goes by so fast. So fast. It's just unbelievable. I'm thinking back, I had gotten married 20 years ago to a woman I should not have gotten married to. And but 20 years ago, we split up in 2006. That was 17 years ago. It's like, what? It seems like yesterday, just yesterday. Anyway, I'm hoping that everybody had a really good time this weekend. And my football team lost again. Los Angeles Chargers. They just did really bad. Really bad. They lost by 3 points again. They've lost eight. Their last 8 straight losses are all for 3 points or less. They're just not a team that knows how to come back and win a game. It's just a shame. Just a shame. It's just the curse. Curse of San Diego. I've been watching them since the early 60s. 61, I think. I mean, God, it's a long time ago. God, it's a long time to be watching a football team. Jeez. Anyway, so some good things happening. Things are kind of quieting down around the world a little bit. We know what's going on in Gaza, but they're trying to get all those hostages out of Gaza back over to Israel. And to return some of those hostages aren't even from Israel. They're from the United States or Germany or Australia or other places. So, that it's crazy. Crazy. I've been mentioning, again, I'm Joe Morris with Answers Heaven Speaks. My daughter is Marisa Moris, and she's to get her on lately, but we'll try. We'll try again. She uses, I think, StreamYard, and we just had a lot of problems with StreamYard. So I said, look, if you want to come on, we need to come on just here on Facebook Live and just deal with that. And so I'm hoping she'll come on again, because many of you like to hear what she has to say especially when she channels Jesus. Because, let me just go over some of these names. I want to go over some names. Now, my iPad broke. Actually, my iPad didn't break. The cord doesn't work anymore. So I gotta find one of these cords like this right here. So I'm gonna have to go buy one, and my iPad doesn't charge up. So I can't hold up and show you pictures of some of the people that give us likes and hearts. But let me just rattle off a few names just to give you some idea who's out there watching and liking what they're hearing. And this just comes from Friday's show. Let me go to the top. Amina Zahir. I think what you're going to find, there are a lot of Hispanic names, and there are equally a number of Arabic names, and a smattering of white Anglo names, but mostly Arabic and Hispanic. Very curious about Jesus. Very curious. Doesn't matter what religion you have. Catholics are very firm in their religion down in South America, and I always think of Catholics as Christians, but Catholics don't think of themselves as Christians. They think of themselves as Catholics. Catholics. So I really don't know any more about Catholicism than I do about Islam, although I have been studying Islam, and I did some more reading this weekend, and I went up to, I've gone up into chapter 4 now, and And so it looks like I've read 488 verses. 488 verses. And I actually started writing some numbers down of that are some concern. Because starting in about chapter 3 of the Quran, Muhammad, up until that point, they're sayings. It's not like the Bible. The Bible tells a story. The Bible's a story, and that's what I do here with the Urantia book. I tell a story. But in the Quran, it's just a lot of verses saying, God is great, God is this, and God will punish you. It's pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. God will punish you if you're a disbeliever. But then I'm going to get to the point in the Quran where it says, you got to follow the prophet. And that's where I came upon it in chapter 3, in verses 51, 86. In fact, it's a little bit wrong because I am looking at now you have to think about this. Islam says that the Quran is the everlasting word of God, and not one word has been changed in the Quran. And you cannot change but one word or change a period or anything like that. Well, I was reading the Quran in the Al-Islam over the weekend, and I came up with a number of, I'd have to show you that backwards, a number of verses that I thought I would touch base on, but I don't think I'm going to. And in chapter 351, there was something to say. Well, I went to a different Quran, and it is from, clearquran.com. And they're off by one. What is 51 in Al-Islam is 50. So there's missing somewhere up in, in chapters 1 and 2, there's 287 verses. And then in chapter 3, it makes up the rest of them, taking it up to 400. So there's 201 verses in chapter 3. And I'm just about ready to get started in chapter 4. I actually have, but I haven't taken any notes yet. But between Al-Islam Quran and this clear Quran, they're missing something. They're off by one. So there's something added to the Al-Islam, and nothing's supposed to be added. But anyway, the point I'm making there is that if you study Islam, you're Arabic, and you study Islam, you're as interested in Jesus as Christians, and you may be more curious, maybe along with the Catholics, than standard, everyday, ordinary Presbyterian, Baptist, Methodist American Christians. The Quran is a channeled book. The Urantia book, which I'm reading from, which tells the story of Jesus, is a channeled book. And but I've come, just from what I've read of the Quran so far, I can see that there's no way Gabriel gave some of these things to Muhammad to say. These are things that came out of the head of somebody, but have been given the credit over to God, Allah. And there's a difference. I mean, we all think, God's the same. It doesn't matter what religion we have. We're all seeking out the same God. Well, it depends on how you describe your God as to whether they're the same or not. But technically, it's still the same. Those who believe that there's a one and only God, there's only one and only God. And he's a loving God. But most people in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament think God is a wrathful God. So we're going to touch on that a little bit. On Jesus' entrance now. He's coming down into Jerusalem at the beginning of his ministry. But let me name off some of the people, and I want to say thank you to those who clicked off a like or a heart. Amina Zahir, Luz, Maniske, Chirito Adasar Baginon, Alion Casas Huescas, Rodrigo Arevalo, Bana Bibari Mohanty, Marianne Urbina Solis, Amelia Mendoza, Vivian Saga Saliot, Marlene Berenia, Eileen Sowers, Rodolfo Diolan, Ag Leader, Hajari Singh, Java Krishna Kandian, Nero Lachi. I'm not going to name them all, just giving you some idea. Indrajit Das, Krishna Prakash Pandey, Roseanne Ned Collins, Pulin Halder, Naimat Shah Bukhari, Fuluswar Satnami, Mushtaq Sahil, Kenda Kabal, and I could go on and on. Jerome Collering, Paul Shiplu, Hedati Ullah, Rabbi Narayan Dora. Again, I could keep going on. Thank you for all of those people. There's many, many more, but I just don't want to sit here the hour naming off names, and I apologize for those if I didn't get to your name. But I'm showing you, listen to the names. They're Arabic, but where we're finding these things coming, most people, and I never know. I don't know where Facebook is going to send this. We give them a kind of a guide, and I kind of say, okay, the world, send it out to the world. And they send it out primarily to India, Pakistan, South America, Palestine, even Saudi Arabia, and also Bangladesh. Bangladesh is coming along. Bangladesh, everybody thinks of Bangladesh, they're so poor. Bangladesh used to be a part of India, and then they broke off in the 20th century and became their own country, and they're actually doing pretty good. They're increasing their farming, their cost of labor was low, so manufacturing has started moving into Bangladesh. And how many of you out there who are probably, over 40, remember pictures of Bangladesh just being a total wasteland and people dying, and just, it's coming along. It's coming along, and we've got some viewers from Bangladesh, so thank you very much. As well as India and Pakistan and Palestine, which takes in, of course, Gaza and the Jews. So we're getting a real mixture of people who are following what we're doing here. So anyway, I'll keep an eye out to see if Marissa's going to come on today. I don't think she is, but she might, but I'll keep an eye on it. We definitely keep these under an hour. We used to go hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. But I want to keep it down so that it's not such a burden to all you folks to have to watch the whole thing. So anyway, Jesus has now entered Jerusalem. That's where we were on Friday. He pretty much has left. He was at Amethyst for a while, for about 4 weeks, after leaving Galilee and coming down to Jerusalem. And they don't stay in Jerusalem. They're staying actually at the house of Lazarus over in Bethany. So when they're doing their thing during the day in Jerusalem, doing their thing mean teaching. The apostles are teaching. And then at night they go over to Bethany and stay at Lazarus' house. I've got a little light right here, and it's blinking a little bit, so we might lose. We might get some blinks in the Wi-Fi because our electricity. Don't forget, I'm coming from Mexico. Not exactly. And I used to have. I had this much trouble when I was in Las Vegas and Henderson. Beautiful, beautiful city. Everything's just brand new. Everything. Roads are new. Buildings are new. Everything's new. New. Everything is new. Like they started from scratch, about 30 years ago, and said, okay, let's build this city out here. And that's pretty much what it is. I wouldn't even say it's 30 years old. It might be 20. It might be 15. Everything's so new. But everything's, you can imagine how upscale and how advanced Las Vegas is. And Henderson is just, right up there against it. It's just, you can, from Marissa's house, you leave her house, climb up kind of on a hill and look down and you can see all of Las Vegas. You're just right there. From Henderson, but we had troubles with Wi-Fi there too. So I apologize if we have a little Wi-Fi problem here. Let's just get right into the story of Jesus, and then if anything else comes up, we'll cover it. And I'll keep an eye to see if Marissa comes in to do any channeling. So we're into paper 142 over it. I'm sorry, we just had a blank. We're on paper 142 in the Arancha book, and Jesus has just now entered Jerusalem. Now, the month of April, don't forget, we got started. He left Galilee in February, early February of 27 AD. And now it's April. And April is the month of Passover for the Jews. The month of April, Jesus and the apostles worked in Jerusalem, going out of the city. It's not a whole month. Passover is not a whole month. It's actually one weekend. And it's usually the right around the first or second weekend of April. Anyway, Jesus and the apostles worked in Jerusalem. They were going out of the city each evening to spend the night at Bethany. Jesus himself spent 1 or 2 nights each week in Jerusalem at the home of Flavius, who was a Greek Jew, where many prominent Jews came in secret to interview him. You know, I've been listening. I listen to, when I fall asleep at night, I like to be listening to something, and then I just fall asleep. And I've been listening to the audio book for the book of John, which is very different from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you got the idea that maybe Mark wrote the first really account. Matthew wrote a little bit of it, but it's like the three of them kind of got the hands on the same account, which probably came from Mark. So Matthew used Mark, Luke used Mark, because Matthew and Luke use various phrases that are identical to what is found in Mark. But John is completely different. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all wrote their epistles, their stories, within about 30 years of the death of Christ. But John didn't write his until around 85 AD, so it was about 50 some odd years later is when John wrote it. And John has the most complete story in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And the Muslims just don't believe John's story. They say, oh, it's too long, you know, it's 50 years after Jesus. But if you're there every day and you're talking about these stories every day to people for 50 years, you're pretty much going to have the story down. And the Muslims 600 years later just didn't want to accept John. So they didn't want to accept the resurrection. And although they believe in the crucifixion, they don't believe it was Jesus that was crucified. And when you confront them on that, they don't have anything really to say, because then they have to conflict the Bible. And Islam specifically states that the people of the book are God's people, and the people of the book are Jews and Christians, and then of course eventually Muslims. Anyway, I don't know what my point was, but anyway, it'll come to me. The first day in Jerusalem, Jesus called upon his friend of former years, Annas, the one-time high priest and relative of Salome, Zebedee's wife, also John and James' mother, Salome, John and James Zebedee, boat makers. And Annas used to be the high priest, but he kind of turned it over, stepped down, and he turned it over to Caiaphas. I think it's Caiaphas. We'll get into it later on. Annas would have judged Jesus, but he stepped down from being the chief priest, and I believe Caiaphas became the head priest. And but Annas, he at one time was friends with Jesus when Jesus was younger, but now that Jesus is teaching, he doesn't care for Jesus at all. Anyway, Annas had been hearing about Jesus and his teachings, and when Jesus called at the high priest's home, he was received with a great deal of reserve. And when Jesus perceived Annas' coldness, he took immediate leave, saying as he departed, quote, "Fear is man's chief enslaver, and pride his greatest weakness." That's God's number one thing God hates. God isn't supposed to hate anything, but he does. He hates our sins. And our number one sin is pride. Number two sin is lying. Pride and lying really go together. Jesus lumps in fear, and he says, fear is man's chief enslaver, and pride is his great weakness. And he goes on, he says, will you betray yourself into bondage to both of these destroyers of joy and liberty? End quote by Jesus. But Anas made no reply. The master did not again see Anas until the time when he sat with his son-in-law in judgment on the Son of Man. That son-in-law, I believe, is then going to be Caiaphas. We'll get there. Stay with us. We're going into the Christmas season. We'll get through as much of the Jesus story as we can. We obviously aren't going to start up at the birth. We already did that many months ago. If you want to go to Answers Heaven Speaks, you can check out all the posts that we've got, and we've gone chronologically from the very first of Jesus being born, right on up through his entire life, up until the point we are right now. So feel free to go there. If you want to know anything about Marisa and you want to know anything about the different books that we've written, they're a lot of fun to read, then just tap the Learn More button up there, up in the top right corner, and that'll take you over to Marisa's website, and you'll see what's over there can be purchased or asked for free, or you can find out more about Marisa, especially if you wanted to set an appointment with her on a one-on-one basis. You can do that through the website as well. So just contact Marisa. Anyway, throughout this month, Jesus or one of the apostles taught daily in the temple. When the Passover crowds were too great to find entrance to the temple teachings, the apostles conducted many teaching groups outside the sacred precincts. The burden of their message was four things. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Number 2, by faith in the fatherhood of God, you may enter the kingdom of heaven. By faith, thus becoming sons and daughters of God. Number 3, love is the rule of living within the kingdom. Love. Boy, that's hard to do. It's hard to love your neighbors. How do you love your neighbors when your neighbors want to kill you? Love is the rule of living within the kingdom. Supreme devotion to God while loving your neighbor as yourself. Hard thing to do. Number 4, obedience to the will of the Father. I'm like a broken record. I say just do the will of the Father because that's what Jesus came down to do. It was his 7th incarnation, and he came down as a human, as Michael, the creator of our universe. And boy, I wish I could sit down and convince some of these people that debate Christianity and debate Islam and Hindu and other religions, Zoroastrianism, Mithraism, Mithrasism, Taoism, Buddhism, whatever, Confucianism. I wish I could sit down with them and say, look, here's this book that came to us very strangely, very quietly in the 1930s. But now it's getting out. People are finding out about this book and learning that, well, if the Quran was channeled by Gabriel, which I have my very big doubts. Yes, maybe some of it was, but I don't believe it all was. There's no way you can convince me that Gabriel was teaching secular ways and telling somebody in the army to chop off the head of somebody else. Now, I haven't gotten to that part of the Quran yet, but when I do, I'll let you know about it. If you want to write these down, the verses that I do have some concern with in chapter 3, if you have a Quran, were verse 51, 86, 107, 133, 139, 145, and then 181 and 188. 145 was, there's not supposed to be any conflict in the Quran. And from 145 to 149 is a complete conflict. Let me give you an example. And that doesn't mean I'm trying to tear anybody away from the faith of Islam. Because if that's your means of getting to God and having a relationship with God, so be it. I can't judge you. But don't tell me that there are contradictions in the Bible when there are, and we have found them, and there have been changes in the Bible, but they're usually found and they're very well told to us. So, well, this was translated from Hebrew to Greek to Latin and then back to English, and so something happens in the translations, and things are changed. Things are changed in the Bible. But the Quran says, no, 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 we are perfect. Everything's perfect. So let me go to 145 in the Al-Islam, but in the Clear Quran, clearquran.com, it's actually number 144. So there's something got added in the first 287 up to 144. Actually, even at 51, there was already 50. I read 51 is actually 50 in the Clear Quran. So instead of 145, you go to 144 if you're in the Clear Quran. And that reads, Muhammad is no more than a messenger. Muhammad is nothing more than a messenger. He is not a person to rule. That's in the beginning of the Quran. By the time you get to the end, because I think there's two sides to the Quran. One was when his wife was married to him, Khadijah, and then after his wife died, while he was up in Medina, he changed completely, changed from a holy man to a warring, secular man. And I haven't got to those yet. But anyway, Muhammad is no more than a messenger. Messengers have passed on before him. You know, the messengers are the prophets in the Old Testament. If he dies or gets killed, will you turn on your heels? This is God speaking, Allah speaking. If he dies, if Muhammad dies or gets killed, will you turn on your heels? And then it goes on. Allah is saying, he who turns on his heels will not harm God in any way. And God will reward the appreciative. So he's saying that if you turn against him, but then if you turn against Muhammad and then eventually you come back, that's what I hear from this. If he dies or gets killed, will you turn on your heels? Spinning on your heels, go looking the other way. He who turns on his heels will not harm God in any way. And God will reward the appreciative. So there doesn't seem to be a problem in leaving the messenger, leaving his word, as long as you're strengthened still in God. And that was 144. But then you get down to 149, and it says, number 149, oh, you who believe, exclamation point. If you obey those who disbelieve, they will turn you back on your heels, and you end up the loser. So only 4 verses before that, God finds favor in you, even though you turn on your heels, whereas 4 verses later, he says you're the loser. You're a loser. Oh, you who believe, if you obey those who disbelieve, they will turn you back on your heels and end up losers. God is your master, and he is the best of helpers. Number 150. We will throw terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Where in the Bible does it say it would throw terror into the hearts of people? But here it is, verse 151. We will throw terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve because they attribute to God partners for which he revealed no sanction. Their lodging is the fire. Miserable is the lodging of the evildoers. God has fulfilled his promise to you, and you defeated them by his leave, until when you faltered and disputed the command and disobeyed after he had shown you what you like. Some of you want this world, and some of you want the next. Then he turned you away from them to test you, but he pardoned you, because God is gracious. It doesn't say Allah, it says God. God is gracious towards the believers. And it goes on. If you die or are killed to God, you will be gathered up. If you are killed in the cause of God or die, forgiveness and mercy, this is 157. Forgiveness and mercy from God are better than what they hoard. Is by the 159, if it is by the grace of God that you are gentle with them. Had you been harsh, hard-hearted, and they would have dispersed from around you. So pardon them and ask forgiveness for them and consult them in the conduct of affairs. And when you make a decision, put your trust in God. God loves the trusting. Excuse me. That's throughout the Quran. Always things like, God loves the trusting. God knows what's being hidden. Then avert death from yourselves if you are truthful. Do not consider those killed in the cause of God as dead. In fact, they are alive at their Lord, well provided for. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff in the Quran. It's supposed to supersede now the Bible because it was the last thing to come along. But there's some things in there that just don't make any sense. Just don't make sense. I'll bring those up to you as we go along. There go my dogs. Let's get back to Jesus over in Jerusalem. And I'm keeping an eye. No, Marisa has not come up. Let me check. I don't have a light, but let me see if she's come in. There's Marisa. I can add her. Let me send an invite. See if she's got anything to say. Let's see if Marisa comes in. The multitudes who came to celebrate the Passover heard this teaching of Jesus, and hundreds of them rejoiced in the good news. The chief priests and rulers of the Jews became much concerned about Jesus and his apostles, and debated among themselves as to what should be done with them. So the chief priests and the Pharisees are going, oh my God, what are we going to do with these people? They're not teaching our rules. And I can see Jesus' first trip into Jerusalem. This is his first trip into Jerusalem as a teacher. And he's already bringing over hundreds and hundreds of people to his cause. On the other hand, Muhammad spent 12 years from the year 610 AD to 622 AD in Mecca, trying to convert people. And when he finally had to flee, it was just him, his wife, and his son-in-law, Imam Ali. He only had 3 followers after 10 years. He obviously did not have the charisma. He obviously did not have the whatever it took to bring people on board. But then something happens when he gets up to Medina. And I think that's when I'll get to further parts of the Quran. When he goes from being a godly man to becoming a secular, warring man, then he starts bringing in the people go, oh, war, let's go fight, let's go chop some heads, blah, blah, blah. But you can see from Jesus' first steps into the temple, and his teaching is already bringing in hundreds of people in his first teachings in the temple. Now you Muslims love Jesus and you want to know more about him. Well, you're learning more about him from something that came long after your prophet came in with the last holy book. That's what you like to say. And 610, they keep referring, they say, call the book, meaning the Quran. They keep referring to the book. When Muhammad died, there was no book. There was no book. The book wasn't put together for about 20 more years. And I think in 652, the first Quran was put together, but we still don't have that. And then that was subsequently sent to 5 northern Muslim mosques up in what we find in Upper Iraq, Lower Turkey, and what would be considered, I think, part of India. It got sent out, and 5 of them got sent out after being penned in 652, and then from there were thousands of Qurans that went around. Lots of them went around, and the Quran all of a sudden started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, how could that be Muhammad's channeling of Gabriel when all of a sudden it's getting bigger, 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 and it wasn't actually canonized. The Quran wasn't even canonized until 1932, I think, just less than 100 years ago. Let's see, I've got a red mark there. Let's see if we can approve Marisa coming in. Send an invite. Let's see if we can get her in for a little while. See if she has anything to add. Yeah, she's going to come in. There you are.
That's a
Marisa.
miracle. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yay. Am I
I
crooked?
think
Am I sideways here?
no, it's muted. So anyway, I'm getting into this. We're going to get into God's wrath, and I think we have finally gotten to the point now where we think of God as a loving God. But believe me, throughout the history of religion and of God, is we always think of God as a wrathful God. Like if we don't do things right, he's going to kill us. And he's going to wipe out our family. He's going to wipe out our cities. He's going to wipe out everything because he's mean. You do one thing wrong and whack, you're done. You know, God's going to give up on you. That's the way most people feel. But now Jesus came along and he said, no, God is a loving God. He is your Father. He is your Father. And you need to deal with him like you would deal with your father. Would your father kill you? If you're a Muslim and you change and get out of the faith of Islam,
I don't
yeah,
know. If
you
you're late,
probably
you
can.
might.
Yeah.
If you're late,
So anyway,
I'm joking.
God's wrath. Let me go for a few minutes on this. I'll leave it up to Marissa to finish up because we
Can
don't
you
want to go
even
over
see
an
me
hour.
or hear me?
Yeah, I can see you.
I can't see
Eh,
you. It's like you're joining, so you're like blanked out, but I don't know. We just make electronics go crazy. It's our frequency. But hey,
No,
whatever.
I see you.
Okay,
I see you.
good.
You're
Good.
there.
Okay, good.
Okay, there was in Jerusalem an attendance. Now let's see. I'm trying to think back. Friday, you didn't get on, but there was something Jesus wanted to say
Yeah,
about.
it was about something that you disagreed with. You said now something that I disagree with is gosh, I don't remember it now. It was something that he wanted to say about something that you said you disagreed with. Um, it's freezing here, by the way. It's like 32 degrees out.
No, it's nice here, although it's cloudy today. It's a little unusual. We've been having some very nice clear weather, but
Oh, it is. It
we
is.
we have some clouds today.
It is
But it's
so cool.
still nice. It's still about 80 degrees or so.
Not
Uh,
here. Um,
no.
okay, what did he wanted to you had said something about disagreeing with something. It was like a verse or something you said, and this is the one thing that I disagree with. And he came in and he was like, they're like, what we'd like to say, and they wanted to talk, and I couldn't get online. It just wouldn't let me. Maybe I'll
It
think of
was
it
a
while you're
verse.
reading this.
It was a verse in the first two chapters. I don't remember exactly which verse it was, but um, it said that you must listen to and do what Allah and His messenger tell you. That was the
Oh, and that's what
first
they're
time.
channeling about. Yeah, that's what they were channeling about, like in my
So
head when I was trying to get online this time.
yeah, so all of a sudden, we go through about 250 verses where God is the leader. God, you follow God. God is eternal. God is going to either throw you into a pit of fire or take you in home. But it was always God, 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 Allah, 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 Allah. But then it finally got to a verse that says, nope, you got to listen to Allah and his messenger, referring to Muhammad, giving all of a sudden Muhammad power that whatever comes from his mouth, you're supposed to listen to. Well, like I say, I'm going to get there. I've read almost 500 verses now of the Quran, but I'm only up to chapter 4. I think there's like 114 chapters. Eventually, I'm going to get to those chapters that came after he got to Medina. And when he went to Medina, all of a sudden he was a warrior, and he was like a
It's like
king.
his
Uh,
lower self took over or something, or it's a completely different person. It feels like it's a completely different person. That's the
I
thing I
think
was going to
it's
say.
a different person. I think it's a
I think it's a
different
different person
person.
too. The energy and the aura of the person that they're talking about are two completely different people. But then again, I was just talking about
Yeah.
this with some of my girlfriends today that come to my class, and I was saying, people are waking up after the pandemic. People are waking up now, like, you're my dad, and I've never gone home with a strange man, but I say this is a metaphor. Like, when women wake up in some strange man's house and then they sneak out the door in the morning and then they try to pretend like they didn't remember the night before because they were with this guy that was way beneath them. That's what everybody did during COVID. Like everybody is like so ashamed of like the person that they became or the people they hung out with or the way they acted. And now that everyone's waking up after the pandemic, we're going like, oh geez, I was this gross person, during this time. And like let's not remember any of that. And it's because we become different people when we go into a lower vibration. So it's either he's a different person or he becomes a different person when his wife dies. Um, but But some people are completely different people when their vibration drops and they disconnect from their higher self. They're completely different people. So he's like the lower vibrational human version of himself. And then he was in his higher self when he was talking to Gabriel, if he was in fact talking to Gabriel. And that's the whole reason why the guides wouldn't let me on concerning all the Quran stuff, because one, people get really, crazy about talking down about their spiritual texts. But two, there's just so much wrong there. There's so much wrong with Gabriel, with Muhammad, with him being the messenger, with the things he did, with his life, with everything that happened after it. There's just so much that's wrong, they said. Same with the Bible. Same with the Bible. Everything, and they've always said, in respect for you being a Christian when we first started, they weren't ever going to disparage the Bible or talk it down because your faith is so strong. You have such strong faith, especially in Jesus. Now you're starting to question things a little bit, but at the same time, you still have this strong faith. So they never wanted to destroy that faith. But at the same time, now that you're asking questions, they're like, well, we can answer them, but we don't want to do it live.
Oh, wow.
So they'll answer any questions you have. They just don't want to do it live because, like we read like you say all the time, we read everything that we channel before we put it into a book. But media is so much faster. People are listening to it. And if they only hear us for like a minute or two and hear one little snippet and it happens to be something that was wrong, and we don't go back and re-listen to the transcripts of what we're saying here and correct it, then we could be destroying somebody's faith, So it's like a really tricky thing. And this is actually Jesus talking. He's saying we don't want to destroy anybody's faith, but we also don't want people to be living based on untruths. Just like he could go into the thing, we could go into the thing about Christmas. We're all celebrating Christmas based on the fact that that's when Jesus was born, when that wasn't when Jesus was born. And what energetically is that doing to us? I mean, we're worshiping Santa rather than worshiping God. Kids are worshiping Santa over God. Kids are going to believe anything we tell them. Why don't we just tell them it's God instead of it's Santa? It's like this this world based on untruths, but based on truth. So it's like, oh, here God was born in this manger here, but then there's this person called Santa that's fat and drinks Coca-Cola and slips down your chimney. And it's like by the time kids get to the point where it's like, wait, Santa, wait, that wasn't the total truth about Santa. Any kids watching, Santa's real. But like when people start to get older, then they go, well, if that's not real, then God's not real. So it's this world based on all these mistruths and half truths. Your favorite half truths. Like you say, half truths are lies. But where do we draw the line? This is Jesus talking. Like, where do we draw the line? Where do we tell people, well, Christmas isn't real, Easter is not real, this isn't real, that's not real, that's actually a pagan holiday, that's actually a pagan god, that's actually a Greek god, that's actually this? Or do we just let people have faith? And that's where, on the spiritual side of the world, like the spiritual realms, this is where he's saying the high councils are having issues, because they're like, do we let them believe, or do we know that they know better? And do we just start to tell them the complete truth? And but the complete truth would destroy so many. So it's kind of like this weird thing that predicament that the spiritual realms, that God basically is having with the people that he's created, because he's created all these people and all these texts have come in. I mean, it would be like somebody making a religion out of the Answers Heaven Speaks books later on, and going, oh, well, they channeled and this is truth, and then people starting to worship us because we were the ones that channeled the information. That's what happened with Muhammad. He channeled information, so now they're worshiping him as a messenger of God, when in reality that'd be like people worshiping me and you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but we don't say in our book that this is the final word of God. And that's what Muhammad says about his, is this is
but
the
a
final
lot
word.
of
And I
channels
swear, I have a feeling. I mean, who was the gatekeeper, or who was the battery for Muhammad? Because
Satan.
he doesn't know. He doesn't know
Satan.
whether he's speaking to Gabriel or whether he's talking to
No,
Satan. Because
I just heard Satan. Satan
yeah,
was.
I'm sure he did.
But
And you can
and
read.
this is taboo. Sometimes, remember, Satan would come in as Jesus too. So Satan comes in as these different beings and says that he's Jesus, or says that he's whoever, and people believe them. Luckily I can see, and I would stay half conscious and half out of consciousness, and then we reread stuff. And in my classes, I stay conscious enough to see that I'll see you know, like I'll see like an overlay come over like Jesus, and it'll be kind of like a film over Jesus, and you'll see that it's like Satan's distortion version of what Jesus is saying. So he may be saying something, and it'll just change it just enough to where it's not true, but it's true, you know, and we're talking to Jesus, so people are going to believe us. So it's just everything's so like, so I'm asking Jesus, so what are we supposed to do? And he says, what you're supposed to do is listen to things with your heart, listen to things not with your mind, but with your heart, and understand that it doesn't matter who said what or who did what. He says, this is the reason for us telling you not to do prophecy, not because you can't foretell the future, not because you can't see accurately what's going to happen in cases that we allow you to see these, not because people couldn't use the information, but because people will make it wrong. People can prove it wrong, thereby destroying your reputation as somebody that is here to bring faith and bring happiness and bring a high vibration to the planet. Both of you are here to bring faith to people and truth, and most importantly, hope. Your mission is bringing hope to individuals through their own truth, not necessarily your truth or our truth, but their truth. When people believe they know the truth, this is when they feel good. When they start to decide to make everybody else believe their truth, this is when people get vindictive and almost evil in trying to shove their truth down other people's throats and make them believe what they believe, so that they will have somebody to back them up, because they're afraid, a little tiny piece of them is afraid that they don't know the truth. So they want to try to convince everybody else of the same thing that they believe, so that they'll feel like they're a part of something rather than just being a truth holder on their own. But this is the case in so many cases with so many religions, is people said, oh, well, I believe this and I have faith, so I'm going to make everybody else believe in this. But really, the reason for these religions is because these beings, Satan and other beings that rule over these religions, are using the people that are part of these religions to fuel their own energy, because they have no connection to God anymore. But our point is what you must do is find what you believe and be okay believing that by yourself. And if you're okay believing that by yourself, not sharing it with anyone, and just keeping it to yourself, that's what God's supposed to be. God is not supposed to be something where people are screaming from the rooftops what they believe. And this is what these religions have become. And this is what this book has become. And this is what the Bible has become. It's all become being a part of something, and being clumped up with other individuals takes you into boxes. And again, as we explained many, many times 3 years ago, boxes are Satan's pathway into your mind, because you're clumping yourself in with, say, 30 other men that are in the building, and you go, oh, well, I'm a man, so I'm with these guys. But all of them, one could be a murderer, one could be a convict, one could be a gambler or a thief, and you're combining yourself with them by saying, well, I'm a man with them, because energetically you're combining with all of their morals and ethics and all this, and this is their demons' ways of getting into your field. So by clumping yourself into, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm this, I'm that, this entire LGBTQ, this whole thing, and the race thing and the religion thing, it's all a way for Satan to get into your mind. So you need to be okay believing what you believe on your own, and just find it in your heart what you believe. And you can search and you can look for truth, but you know what you believe inside. Most people know what they believe. They just are trying to find things to disprove them or to prove themselves right, depending on what their background is.
Good.
That's interesting. It fell out of my head. Never mind.
No, that's
I was
okay.
gonna comment.
That's a good lesson to end with, because I don't want to go up pushing the hour. So anyway, but I'm glad you came in today. I hope I'll mention on there that you came in, and that they should listen to what you had to say, because he's reiterating what Jesus has just reiterated again, is believe in yourself and what you believe in your relationship with God, and you don't have to be pushing your religion onto somebody else. In other words, it's the parable of the orchard.
Yeah.
Who cares? Why should I care what my neighbor thinks, as long as my neighbor doesn't try to kill me or push his religion down my throat? Just do your own thing. Just leave everybody alone. Treat your neighbor as
Yeah.
you'd want your neighbor to treat you. And I think that's a good lesson.
Yeah.
So anyway,
And
okay.
real quick, and this won't take any longer than 20 seconds. They're saying that when you believe and you have faith, you have a high vibration. So you're up in your heart, because you can only believe and you can only have faith in your, if you have belief and faith in benediction, that's down like in the root, that's down in like you have to clump with others to be like, well, we believe this, so you die. And but belief up in your heart, it's that feeling that where you want to cry, where you just the Holy Spirit, where you just believe and you feel good, and that alone will be the Messiah. That feeling alone, more than a certain percentage of people on the planet having that feeling, is the Messiah. It's people feeling dogs. It's feeling faith and compassion, strength, and hope. And so that's all they want. They don't want religion. They just want everyone to feel compassion, strength, hope, and belief and hope. The dogs are going nuts. I just snapped out. Okay, well, I don't want to hold this after. Now I
Okay.
know how to get in. It's through this
Good.
discovering intuition living or whatever. So now I know how to get in. So I did send
Okay,
you an
good.
email about StreamYard though. So anyways, okay, I'll talk to you later, Papa. Love you.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks,
Okay,
Marissa.
I'll be here tomorrow.
Thanks
Okay,
for coming
bye.
in.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Okay, everybody. Joe Morris, Answers Heaven Speaks. That was Marissa. And bring back down a little bit there. Yeah, there we go. And so Marissa has some words for you people who are going to be, I guess, somewhat judgmental. You don't need to be judgmental. Just appreciate God the way God is, and God is in your life. And if somebody wants to believe in whatever, they want to believe in lollipops and roses as their religion, fine. Let them believe in lollipops and roses. If that's what brings them peace in their life, as long as they don't try to force me to believe in lollipops and roses. And I won't push my faith down their throat either. I will drop a seed. You can drop a seed. Remember the parable of the sower. We're going to get to that pretty quick here. But anyway, okay, rambling now. We're getting into Jesus in Jerusalem, and he's already got some followers. He's got hundreds already. He's just getting started. So stick with us. The story is going to become even more and more interesting as we go along, and I'll incorporate other holy books into this as we go along, besides just the Urantia book. So again, God bless all of you. Do the will of the Father. That's what Jesus came here for. That's what he told us to do. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God with all your heart and soul. And do the will of the Father. And see how it changes your life each day. So again, I'm Joe Morris. That was Marissa. And if God's willing, we'll all be back here again tomorrow. So enjoy your Monday evening. Watch Monday Night Football. And if God's willing,